When you finally dig into the attic, blow the dust off that heavy grey box, and hear that terrifyingly loud bass drop of the Sony startup chime, what is the very first game that actually materialises in your head? For a massive chunk of us, it isn't a brooding mercenary with an unnecessarily large sword, and it definitely isn't a survival horror mansion filled with voice acting so bad it qualifies as a war crime. It's a bright orange marsupial spinning aggressively through wooden crates like a chaotic tornado in denim shorts. Crash Bandicoot is the undeniable beating heart of the PlayStation 1. The original Naughty Dog trilogy was an absolute explosion of momentum right out of the gates. We went from simply trying to survive the hostile, rickety linear jungle of the first game to navigating the slick, icy expanses and space stations of the sequel, and finally just tearing straight through the fabric of time itself here in the third. This franchise didn't just define a console, it practically defined the entire concept of the living room arcade for a generation. But coming back for this third chapter is actually a remarkable bittersweet experience, because let's be entirely honest with ourselves, this was it. Aside from that absolute victory lap that was Crash Team Racing and the flagship ruining multi-tap chaos of Crash Bash, this was the closing book on the golden era. After this, the franchise famously lost its way. It changed developers, it changed engines, and it completely lost the very essence that made it a mandatory purchase for the late 90s. Crash Bandicoot Warped is the climax of the 32-bit mascot platformer. It is Naughty Dog operating at the absolute terrifying peak of their powers, delivering a game so wildly ambitious, so packed with bizarre mechanics, and so relentlessly fun that it still feels like pure magic over 2 decades later. It is a game that looked at the rulebook of platforming, threw it out the window, and replaced it with a fruit bazooka.
Even once, but you, Cortex, you have failed me twice.
Great Ooga, it was that infernal Bandicoot.
From deep inside my temple prison, I sent you simple instructions to follow, but you lost the gems, you lost the crystals, and I have lost my patience. There is now no other power source left on this planet.
I know we've had a few unfortunate setbacks.
And failed! But since your bumbling has managed to set me free, I am feeling generous. There is still a way for us to amass the power needed to enslave this miserable planet. And this time the great Ooga will make sure that you do it right.
Welcome to the PSX Index. I'm Parasine, and this is the show where I play and document all 1,278 PS1 games released across Northern America, and this episode is Index Entry 77. We have already covered the brutal, unforgiving beginnings of the franchise back on the beaches of Insanity Island in Index Entry 5, and we have mastered the tactile, perfectly sanded down perfection of the warp room entries in Entry 56. Now we are stepping fully into the time machine. If Cortex Strikes Back was about refining the formula and making the mechanics sing, Warped is about taking that perfectly balanced formula, strapping a jetpack to it, and blowing the doors completely off the hinges. Instead of an island map or a basic elevator hub, we get the Time Twister machine, a sprawling thematic lobby that serves as a gateway to different eras. This is comfortably the most replayable, content-stuffed game in the entire trilogy. You aren't just jumping and spinning your way through narrow corridors anymore. Naughty Dog decided that basic jumping simply wasn't enough. You are deep sea diving in full scuba gear. You are riding heavy motorcycles down 1950s highways while desperately trying to avoid getting run over by police cars. And you are dodging rogue blips in a biplane high above the clouds. It is a massive, incredibly confident swing from a studio that clearly knew exactly what they were doing. The stakes are higher, the mechanical variety is bordering on the absurd, and the sheer volume of things to do is staggering. It is the ultimate playground for anyone with a D-pad.
After many eons,
my evil twin, Uka Uka, has been freed from his underground prison. Long ago, I locked him there to protect the world from his malice. Now, free once again, he must be stopped. Children, Uka Uka and Cortex plan to use this time-twisting machine to gather crystals that lay scattered across time. I have brought you here to recover the crystals before they do so. To open the time portal, simply stand on a button and then jump into the portal. Good luck.
It is genuinely hard to wrap your head around just how fast this series escalated during the late 90s. In the incredibly brief span of 3 years, Naughty Dog went from rendering a single static map screen to rendering a fully realised, time-twisting hub world that spans centuries. The pacing of the development cycle is practically science fiction in the modern gaming landscape. Today, it takes a massive studio 7 years and $500 million just to animate the individual pores on a protagonist's nose. In 1998, Naughty Dog gave us an entire time-travelling epic in 12 months. And they didn't just recycle a bunch of old assets to rush a game out the door for the holiday season. They actively built entirely new physics models to support the sheer lunacy of the gameplay styles thrown into this third installment. You want a level where a tiger runs across the Great Wall of China? Done. You want an incredibly twitchy jet ski section that fundamentally changes how you approach the water? They made it work. They essentially shoved a racing game, a flight simulator, and a platformer onto a single CD-ROM. The scope of Warped is a testament to a studio that absolutely refused to sit still and cash an easy check. They knew they had undivided attention of an entire gaming world. They knew they were the undisputed kings of the platforming genre, and they used every single technical trick hiding in the silicon of the PlayStation to keep us glued to our screens. The jump from the first game to the third feels like a leap spanning an entire console generation, yet it all happened on the exact same piece of the grey plastic. Every great mascot needs a foil. Mario has Bowser, Sonic has Robotnik, and Crash has a man with a giant lowercase n stamped on his forehead who constantly screams at floating pieces of wood. Dr. Neo Cortex is the absolute gold standard for a 90s video game antagonist. He is the villain you love to hate, but seriously hate to love. In Warped, that dynamic reaches its absolute peak because he is no longer the one in charge. The introduction of Uka Uka demotes Cortex into a frantic, terrified middle-aged management lackey. He has this incredible Pinky in the Brain charm to him now, a megalomaniac with a massive, fragile ego and zero actual competence, constantly undermined by his own terrible planning. But the real secret weapon behind Cortex is the voice acting. Clancy Brown delivered the performance of a lifetime here. When you finally hit that age where you realise that the towering, intimidating guy you see in dozens of live-action movies and the prestige TV shows, the guy whose face you instantly recognise but whose name you usually have to look up, is the voice behind the PlayStation's most pathetic villain, it completely blows your mind. He gave Cortex a theatrical, unhinged energy that anchored the entire franchise. You actively wanted to beat the warp rooms just to see what melodramatic excuse he was going to scream at you next.
I'm sorry. This is the part where I'm supposed to be angry, full of rage, incensed beyond belief. Once again, you have outsmarted and outspun my best henchman. I should be rather upset, shouldn't I?
And in fact, we're furious!
The true genius of Warped, and the reason it burrowed so deep into our brains, lies in its replayability. Naughty Dog took the crystal hunting structure of the second game and completely weaponised it. Simply reaching the end of the level to grab a purple crystal is essentially just the tutorial. The real meat of the game is the grind. Earning the clear and coloured gems demands absolute mastery of the environments, forcing you to score every single hidden corner of those medieval villages and Arabian rooftops to break every last crate. But Warped introduced a brand new mechanic that became the ultimate test of our collective sanity: the time trials. Suddenly, you weren't just playing for survival or exploration, you were playing for pure, reckless speed. Earning those relics fundamentally changed how you looked at a level. You had to memorise the placement of every yellow time freeze crate, optimise every single slide jump, and sprint directly past hazards that you used to patiently wait out. It turned a casual platformer into a fiercely competitive racing game against the clock. When you were 1 second away from that gold relic and accidentally spun directly into a nitro crate right before the finish line, it tested your blood pressure in ways a 3D platformer had no right to. It is nearly impossible to talk about the original trilogy today without acknowledging the insane trilogy. Vicarious Visions delivered what is, objectively speaking, the perfect remake. They rebuilt those iconic worlds from the ground up with stunning, high-definition detail and an incredible amount of reference to the source material. But even with that modern masterpiece sitting right there on the hard drive, there is a very specific reason I still find myself reaching for the Polygon originals. There is a tactile feedback to the PlayStation 1 versions that simply cannot be replicated by modern game engines. The rigid geometry, the instant snap of the D-pad controls, and the compressed, heavy thud of the audio creates a rhythm that feels fundamentally right. When Crash lands a spin kick or shatters a wooden crate on the PS1, it has a crunchy mechanical weight to it. The modern polish is undeniably beautiful, but those jagged 32-bit edges of the 1998 release hold a specific charm. There is a precision to the collision detection of the original that high-definition lighting and smooth modern physics engines just can't quite capture. It is the difference between looking at a beautiful photograph of a classic arcade cabinet and actually feeling the worn-out plastic buttons under your fingers.
No, it cannot be! Not a prisoner of time again!
The legacy of this franchise gets a little complicated when you look at where the series went next. If we skip past the messy, experimental PlayStation 2 years and jump straight into the modern reboot, Crash 4, It's About Time, the contrast is incredibly stark. That game completely missed the point of what made the original 1998 grind so inherently fun. To put it bluntly, it was just too relentlessly hard, even by the historically brutal, unforgiving standards of this franchise. The difficulty spike in Crash 4 were downright exhausting. It stripped the sheer joy out of the gem grind by hiding crates in completely nonsensical, off-screen places, and it turned the time trials into a miserable chore demanding absolute, frame-perfect perfection. It lost the charm of the 32-bit era entirely. The magic of Warped is that it makes you feel like you are mastering the physics engine. When you die, it is usually because you got greedy with a spin attack or missed a slide jump. When you die in the modern reboot, it feels like the game is actively punishing you for existing. Warped gave us an accessible, immensely satisfying loop, while its modern suppressor replaced that with a punishing gauntlet that felt more like a grueling test of endurance than an actual video game you play to unwind. What makes Warp so visually memorable, and what kept us completely glued to our televisions, is the atmosphere of its distinct eras. The Time Twister hub is a brilliant piece of environmental design, clearly separating the game into completely different historical themes. The medieval levels are packed with wizards, annoying toads, and brilliantly animated sword-swinging hazards. The prehistoric swamps are thick with atmospheric tension, bubbling tar pits, and the constant looming threat of a rogue triceratops chasing you into the screen. And that is before you even get to the neon-lit futuristic cities or the trap-filled Egyptian tombs. Naughty Dog managed to perfectly capture the essence of these time periods without ever losing the core identity of the platforming mechanics. They focused entirely on the art direction and the environmental hazards, ensuring that every single time you walk through a portal, you were completely transported to a new aesthetic. It kept the game feeling incredibly fresh from the first warp room all the way to the end, all while maintaining that locked-in, smooth frame rate. It was a visual buffet that proved just how much mileage you could get out of a fixed camera if you dressed the sets perfectly.
The Time Twister machine could not hold itself together. We were lucky to escape.
Give me the mask! With it I shall take over the world! Come on!
It is difficult to say what has happened to our enemies, but I doubt we will see them for a long time.
Warped is a deeply bittersweet milestone on this journey. It represents the absolute pinnacle of the platforming genre on this specific hardware, but it is also a massive, undeniable farewell. This is the last time a mainline Crash game felt truly, universally essential. Right before the Great Mascot Wars died down and the entire industry rapidly moved on to dual analog shooters and sprawling open worlds. When you play Warp today, you are playing the final chapter of a very specific kind of gaming magic. It is a reminder of a time when a linear, beautifully crafted platformer could captivate the entire world, dominate the sales charts, and genuinely justify the purchase of the console. It was a cultural phenomenon that never truly left the grey box behind, and for those of us who grew up memorising these levels, the console never left it behind either. It is the gold standard, the peak of the mountain, and the perfect time capsule of 1998, all rolled into one disc.
Kai and Dr. Cortex have sent me to end this little charade, so you won't be leaving my area with the crystals. I swear it.
Closing out Crash Bandicoot Warped is a loud, chaotic and brilliant reminder of exactly why Naughty Dog were the undisputed kings of the living room arcade. It is a masterpiece of game design and the perfect final chapter for the mainline 32-bit era. Documenting this entry has been a genuine trip back to that portable CRT in the back room of my nan's house. A reminder that while technology moves on, the feeling of hitting a perfect jump is timeless. If you want to see what else we've documented in the first 77 games, everything is sorted into playlists on the channel. The goal here is to document the whole library. That means that one incredibly obscure, weird game you rented back in a weekend in 1998 and can't quite remember the name of, we are going to cover it, but you have to be subscribed to see it or it's just going to get lost in the algorithm. 77 games down, 1,201 games to go. Next time on the PSX Index, we are performing another massive systematic sweep of a sporting giant. So far in Index entries 19 through to 30, we conquered the entire FIFA franchise, and in Index entries 57 through to 64, we marched through the history of the NBA Live. Now it's time for the gridiron. We are tackling the complete Madden FL history on the PlayStation 1, spanning 9 games from Madden 97 all the way to the sunset year of Madden 2005. These sport-heavy episodes might not be the biggest hitters on the channel, because let's face it, sports games rarely look backwards. but a challenge is a challenge. It's time to get that 1278 number up. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the EA Sports Era Part 3. Click a playlist on your screen to keep the retro trip going, and I'll see you on the 50-yard line.
Crash, Coco, you must realize that this time twister machine is very delicate. Without Dr. Entropy's constant care and control, who knows what it will do?